what I'm doing. Yet. My business hasn't gotten traction. Yet. No one's picked up my book proposal. Yet.
Yes.
Once upon a time, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle seemed to be living a real-life fairy tale in sunny Montecito. They had love, freedom, and a new start across the pond. But pretty soon, that was about to turn into lifelong turmoil. In 2020, after boldly stepping back from royal duties, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex landed in California with big dreams and even bigger deals. The world watched as the pair traded palace protocols for Hollywood hustle, imagining they'd soon build an entertainment empire of their own. It was as if the Sussexes had snagged a golden ticket to the American dream. What could possibly go wrong? But in Hollywood, as in fairy tales, happily ever after is never guaranteed. Harry and Meghan were about to learn that the road from royalty to riches can be a bumpy ride filled with twists, turns, and a whole lot of drama. And it all started with money. The Sussexes didn't waste time turning their newfound fame into fortune. They inked splashy, multi-million-dollar deals left and right, fueling sky-high expectations. They signed a reported $100 million partnership with Netflix to produce documentaries, films, and shows through their Archewell Productions. Netflix was betting big that Harry and Meghan's royal mystique could churn out must-watch TV. Then came a $20 million deal with Spotify for exclusive podcasts. Meghan's show, Archetypes, launched with much fanfare, as it showed the Duchess chatting with celebrity guests about female empowerment. The first episode even hit #1 on Spotify's charts. It seemed they were off to a strong start. Harry landed a lucrative book contract, culminating in his tell-all memoir, Spare. Meghan dabbled in publishing too, with a children's book called The Bench in 2021, though that one quietly came and went. With these deals, the Sussex brand was poised to dominate the media. They had money in the bank, production teams at their fingertips, and a public eager to hear their story after that explosive Oprah interview in 2021. But hold on, did our fairy tale couple really have the Midas touch? Or were cracks already forming in their glittering new kingdom? It wasn't long before reality gave them a royal reality check. The first sign that all was not well came quietly. In mid-2022, Meghan's much-hyped animated series Pearl got axed by Netflix. This was supposed to be Meghan's debut as a creator, a feminist children's show about a girl inspired by women in history, but it was canceled before it even began. Netflix was slashing costs after some subscriber losses, and Pearl was a casualty. Meghan, who had been thrilled to announce the project just a year earlier, suddenly saw her big creative venture evaporate. The streaming giant insisted it was just business, and they were cutting back on animation across the board. But to tabloid tongues, this was the first whiff of failure. Was the Meghan and Harry magic not as strong as believed? Things kept getting messier. Production of their flagship Netflix documentary, Harry and Meghan, turned out to be no fairy tale behind the scenes. Reports surfaced that the Sussexes were difficult collaborators, allegedly clashing with directors over creative control. On one overseas shoot, it was rumored their insistence on perfection led to a technical snafu. An entire day of filming lost because of missing audio. Meanwhile, the final product, a 6-part tell-all docuseries, certainly drew eyeballs, but did it deliver? Netflix had hoped for a smash hit revealing royal secrets, a money-minting blockbuster. Instead, critics yawned that it was more a love story and rehash of their grievances than fresh palace tea. It failed to satisfy the public's curiosity for real royal dirt and did not turn out to be the money-minting machine Netflix had banked on. The Sussexes' big Netflix debut wasn't exactly a flop, but it didn't set the world on fire either. Netflix had paid top dollar, and execs were reportedly left scratching their heads. They thought to themselves, was the hype fizzling out? The pressure was mounting for Harry and Meghan to prove they were worth all that cash. And unfortunately for them, the real drama was unfolding off-screen. In January 2023, Prince Harry's memoir came in. The book was ominously titled Spare, and it flew off shelves, breaking records as the fastest-selling nonfiction ever. It seemed Harry had achieved the blockbuster success they craved, but at what cost? As readers cracked open Spare, jaws dropped. Harry spilled everything, from private family fights to intimate personal details. The memoir was, in a word, explosive. For a brief moment, Harry and Meghan had the world's attention again, with interviews on 60 Minutes, late-night show cameos, and all the buzz. Yet the very candor that made Spare a commercial win also triggered a ferocious backlash. Critics argued Harry had gone too far, airing out royal dirty laundry in lurid detail. The New York Times mused that the public was developing Harry and Meghan fatigue, finding the constant oversharing tiresome. Some even blamed Meghan for his failure.
That lady is a temptress. She's a siren. She's lured him into the rocks.
I haven't heard that
term lawyer. She's a harlot. Almost.
She's, well, harlot's bad, right? She's just powerful.
Plus, even a Forbes commentator bluntly called Spare brand suicide. Polls nosedived. In Britain, Harry's popularity hit rock bottom after the book's release, and only 24% of the public now had a positive view of him, an all-time low. He once pulled higher than Prince William, and now Harry was languishing near the likes of the disgraced Prince Andrew in popularity. A YouGov poll in early 2023 found a whopping 68% of Britons had a negative opinion of Harry. Even in the US, the Sussex's refuge, support was waning. One survey showed Harry's unfavorable ratings in America climbed by 6% after Spare. And then, the public backlash was unleashed. By 2023, the media gloves were off. Harry and Meghan found themselves the target of withering criticism and even mockery from all sides. The couple who once drew sympathy for fleeing a hostile British press were now getting skewered everywhere in a way that would make any royal blush. One major example was South Park. In February 2023, the satirical cartoon aired an episode titled The Worldwide Privacy Tour, featuring a fictional Prince of Canada and his wife, characters that were a barely disguised parody of Harry and Meghan, and it was brutal.
It's the Worldwide Privacy Tour. Come on. We want privacy. We want privacy. It's the Worldwide Privacy Tour.
The prince promotes a tell-all book called WOG, and the princess is described as a sorority girl, actress, influencer, victim. The episode ripped them apart. South Park portrayed Harry and Meghan as hypocrites who crave attention under the guise of privacy. And here's what made it worse. South Park wasn't the only one who thought so.
But they're ridiculous after that. They want it both ways. You know, you can't be, these people were so mean to us and poor us, and we don't want all this attention, and then let me write a book about how much we don't want attention.
Media outlets had a field day. Were Harry and Meghan going to sue South Park? One headline teased, "For the record, their spokesperson dismissed that as nonsense." The fact such a popular show lampooned them so openly was a clear sign. The Sussex brand had become a bit of a joke in some quarters. Even The Independent quipped in a headline, "Oh my God, they killed their credibility," after the South Park fiasco. Then came the UK tabloid frenzy. British commentators who once merely sneered, now outright snarled. The most notorious example came in late 2022 when TV host Jeremy Clarkson wrote a venomous column in The Sun about Meghan. Clarkson wrote that he hated Meghan on a cellular level and dreamed of the day when she'd be forced to parade naked through the streets while people hurled excrement at her. The outrage was immediate, and Clarkson's piece became the UK's most complained about article ever. The Sun had to apologize and yank it from their website. Clarkson himself issued a sheepish apology, admitting he put his foot in it, but the damage was done. If anyone still doubted the intensity of press hostility toward Meghan, there it was in black and white. It wasn't just fringe columnists piling on. Former allies in the media started to turn their backs too.
Really?
Absolutely. I said it's ridiculous that one human being, this is something liberals especially should believe, that you don't call another human being Your Highness?
In 2023, even Vanity Fair, the very magazine that gave Meghan her glowing 2017 cover, published an 8,000-word expose bluntly titled American Hustle. This piece scrutinized the Sussexes' ambitious but faltering ventures in America, marking a sharp U-turn from the fawning coverage they once enjoyed. It dished out a litany of allegations that Meghan had been acting like a mean girl to staff, that their team in Montecito was chaotic with high turnover, even floating gossip about Meghan discussing a post-divorce book deal in case their marriage soured. For the record, Harry laughed off the divorce rumors, joking that by tabloid count, we've been divorced maybe 10 or 12 times. But the fact that Vanity Fair took such a harsh tone was a huge warning sign. Brand Sussex was losing its shine and its media protectors. Now, in the summer of 2023, Harry and Meghan's media kingdom really started to crumble. First came Spotify. Remember that $20 million podcast deal? By June 2023, it was done. After just one 12-episode season of Archetypes, Spotify and the Sussexes announced they had mutually agreed to part ways. The PR language was polite, but the insider leaks were brutal. Word got out that Harry and Meghan hadn't met the productivity benchmarks to receive their full payout. But then came a moment that really shook things up. Bill Simmons, a top Spotify executive and podcast guru, blasted the Sussexes on his own podcast. He called them FD skeptiku off in grifters, saying they took the money and delivered barely anything. Simmons even joked that the podcast they should have launched was called Befe Wat in Grifters. And if that wasn't enough, he said F them on air. It was a shocking moment, not just because of the language, but because it came from someone high up at the company. When Hollywood insiders start openly mocking you, the writing's on the wall. Why did Spotify walk away? Sources said it came down to creative differences and inconsistent output. Meghan's podcast had started strong and even won an award, but behind the scenes, it struggled. She reportedly couldn't lock in the A-list guests she wanted. Meghan is said to have personally reached out to some big names, like Taylor Swift, who didn't respond. Without that star power, archetypes didn't become the smash hit they needed. This is where the media circus began. As if things weren't chaotic enough, May 2023 delivered a headline that sounded like a movie script. Harry and Meghan claimed they were involved in a near-catastrophic car chase in the middle of New York City. According to their statement, paparazzi chased them for over 2 hours after a charity event. They described it as relentless and dangerous, with multiple near collisions. Immediately, the public flashed back to Princess Diana's tragic story. Were we watching history repeat itself? But then, questions started popping up. The NYPD, which had been involved in managing their security that night, said there were paparazzi, but downplayed the drama. They confirmed the couple had reached their destination safely, with no injuries, crashes, or arrests. Even New York's mayor expressed skepticism. He said a high-speed car chase for 2 hours in Manhattan traffic sounded impossible, and frankly, hard to believe. One of the taxi drivers who briefly drove the Sussexes that night said he didn't consider it a chase at all. The story unraveled. What was first reported as a terrifying pursuit turned into a strange puzzle. Was it an exaggerated statement or an honest miscommunication? Either way, the headlines shifted from concern to confusion. Late-night comedians had a field day. The public reaction was mixed, as some were sympathetic while others rolled their eyes. Once again, the couple's PR moment had slipped out of their control. Instead of reclaiming the narrative, they found themselves at the center of another debate. Were they victims, or were they fueling the chaos? Fair or not, the public perception was leaning toward the latter, and that's a tough place to be when you're already trying to save a struggling brand. So, they went into crisis mode. By now, the pattern was obvious. From deal disappointments to media backlash, Harry and Meghan were facing their most difficult chapter yet. So what did they do? They pivoted quietly but strategically.
That's the big distraction.
That's the big distraction right there.
There's a war room apparently in England where they're trying to figure out what to do.
Oh, really?
I heard did you hear about that? Yes.
They parted ways with their longtime PR firm, Sunshine Sachs. This was the same team that had helped Meghan navigate her rise from Suits to the royal stage. Ending that relationship signaled a major shift. From then on, they would handle communications more in-house, scaling back and trying to regain control. Then Meghan made a bold move. She signed with the powerhouse talent agency WME, represented by none other than Ari Emanuel, one of Hollywood's most powerful figures. The mission was to relaunch Meghan as a multimedia entrepreneur, not acting, but brand building, producing, and launching ventures that could stand on their own. Meghan's team filed trademarks for a potential lifestyle brand rumored to be called As Ever. It included everything from skincare to pet products. People immediately started calling it Meghan's version of Goop, like a royal Gwyneth Paltrow. Whether it works remains to be seen, but it was clear Meghan was planning her next act. Harry, meanwhile, focused on projects he cared deeply about, like the Invictus Games and a related docuseries. He kept a lower profile, especially after the whirlwind of Spare, but there are whispers that even Harry might be planning something new, possibly in philanthropy, or maybe even something in the corporate space like leadership development. Despite all the setbacks, it's surprising how they still haven't given up. They're still rebranding, recalibrating, and trying to move on from the drama. But damage control isn't easy when your story has played out so publicly, and when rumors keep swirling about everything from staff troubles to relationship stress. Even the workplace gossip made headlines. Some former employees described Meghan as demanding, calling her a dictator in heels. The Sussexes denied this firmly, saying those stories were untrue. Supporters of the couple said it was a smear campaign, part of a wider pattern of unfair treatment. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But regardless, the perception has shifted. In Hollywood, perception is everything. If people start to see you as difficult or disorganized, it's hard to get momentum back. And unfortunately, that's where Harry and Meghan find themselves now.